Welcome to the Macworld podcast. I'm Roman Loyola from Macworld. Joining me remotely are Jason Cross and Michael Simon. Hi, guys.
Hello.
And the most important man in the room, as I like to point out, this week is our producer, Adam Patrick Murray.
There we go. Not Daniel Masoka. I'm sorry, you have the lesser interesting video producer, Adam Patrick Murray, right here.
But you have three names, so that's
right.
You know,
three first names.
I try to step up Dan at any point that I can. So you know, I needed to do something to differentiate myself. So here we are.
Dan's on vacation, but Adam.
No,
the
he's
reason
not on
why,
vacation.
No, he's in.
But the reason why Adam is the most important man in the room is because he's checking our Twitter and YouTube feeds. We're live on Twitter and YouTube, and he's looking out for your guys' comments and questions. So if anyone in the audience has something to say, please let us know, and Adam will chime in and let us know what you guys are thinking. Because we got a lot to cover today.
Nothing important happened this week. So.
Yeah.
It's going to be a snoozer.
Yeah, we really need your guys' comments because we don't have much to talk about. It's just a thing called WWDC that happened. That's happening.
Oh, I thought we were talking about Computex. No?
We could if anyone
I
wants
just
to bring
got done
that
talking
up.
about Computex on PC World, so let's do that.
Yes. So Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference is happening as we speak. It's all this week in San Jose at the San Jose Convention Center. It's the big powwow of Apple developers, and Apple shows off some new technology. For the rest of us, there was the keynote that happened on Wednesday. I was there along with a lot of other people.
It was Monday, Roman.
Oh, see. So I was out yesterday. So so my brain's a little tired. So please, I apologize for everything in advance that I'm going to say from now on. So, but yeah, it was Monday morning. It was a pretty interesting keynote, as Tim Cook said at the beginning. It was a lot of focus on software. So Apple covered its OSs. It covered iOS, macOS, watchOS, tvOS.
No audio OS.
No.
Is that a real thing?
So
it is. That's the HomePod.
right.
HomePod software, whatever it's called, the HomePod OS.
Did they change the name? Because they just run iOS.
Well, that's the underlying thing, but audio OS is technically the HomePod part of it.
Oh, flavor of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, but
they
didn't mention that at all. HomePod, I don't think even came out of anybody's mouth during the 2 hours.
Right. So,
but why was that? Don't they usually do like a "Hey, look how good it did" kind of recap, right?
They do if it's doing good.
Yeah. Oh.
Also, it is a developer event. I don't know how much third-party developers have in terms of like HomePod stuff. I have no idea. Like,
I think unless there's new stuff that developers have to be aware of, they're just not going to cover that a lot.
Right.
I think if there was stuff developers could do with it, they would certainly talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
but so there was a lot to cover. And if people watching have what was your lasting impression of the keynote? What stood out to you? What are you excited about? Let us know in the comments. And I'll just throw that out there to Mike and Jason and even Adam, who is paying attention to Computex.
You know what? I did watch about the first half of WWDC keynote. I got to say, I really liked the Planet Earth homage at the beginning. As a cinematographer, it was beautifully done.
So the funny thing is, if people who don't know, Apple tends to do something. They try to poke. I don't know how to say they want to poke fun at their developers, but they like to.
It kind of was a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, they were, but it was kind of like we're not
in good spirit.
Yeah, it's done in good spirit. It's trying to kind of like relate to developers, and developers have certain habits that they have, and the opening of the keynote, if people didn't see it, was basically parrying that, and it was like a David Attenborough style documentary of the developer. Yeah. And the funny thing was the media. I sat in the media section, and there was a lot of people in the media section that thought it was kind of cringeworthy, but the developers around me loved it. They were laughing hysterically. They were clapping. And they really enjoyed it. So, anyways, that's that little aside. So, if you want to see it, you can see it online. So,
I thought for a keynote that spent 2 hours only talking about with no new hardware products to announce or anything.
yeah.
I thought it was actually pretty engaging. It was pretty good, and there was a lot to like about what they said. I don't think there was any moment when I'm sitting there watching it, rolling my eyes, going, "Oh God, they're doing this," or anything, which is unusual. There's usually something at WWDC where I'm just like, or just get grossly disappointed by the fact that it's just Macs with slightly new processors. They're making a big deal about it.
Yeah.
It was surprisingly fast paced. The demos were quick and they didn't linger on any one feature for too long. I agree. I thought it was engaging for one of Apple's longest. It was long.
Yeah, it was long.
It was long. Yeah, I was sitting next to somebody, and I was sitting next to Dan Frakes. He used to be a Macworld editor who's now at the Wirecutter. And after the first hour, he nudges me and goes, "That was just iOS." It was like a whole hour on iOS. We were like, but iOS is their big product. That's it's what gets most of the attention nowadays. So, there was a lot. Especially the thing that happens with WWDC is that there's sometimes a general letdown by the general public because they don't see enough bells and whistles, but you have to remember that this is a developers conference. And so a lot of this, Apple tries to balance it by offering stuff that developers really want to see, but they know that the general public is watching this. So they have to I don't want to say lower the bar, but the bar's in a, do you know what I mean? If the
They're not
bar's
gonna bring
a
up a bunch
different
of coding
location,
windows and stuff, right?
it's not lower, but they have a different bar to get to. So they have a tricky thing of like being appealing to the developers, but also knowing that there are people like me watching it and going, "Huh, I don't get that." But where's the bell and whistle? I want to see that.
But at the same token, this is iOS 12. This is macOS 14. Like they don't hide or keep features for the fall. I mean, they show you everything.
Right.
They
Not
do.
unless
They do.
there's new hardware for the fall, right?
Right. Something specific to whatever the new iPhone is.
Yeah.
But they do kind of show you what developers can do with it. But it's definitely like this is it. This is the consumer release of iOS 12. This is what we're gonna get in September.
Yeah.
Well, likely September.
And I got to say, people in chat right now, there's plenty of features people are excited about that are all consumer facing stuff. So
yeah. So is there? Well, so we'll start with iOS. What of iOS do you guys? What the biggest reception that I could tell from the room was two things: was Siri shortcuts and group notifications, and that got a huge group notifications got
like
a huge
like
response.
a jeer and cheer.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, it's about time. Yeah.
So, which seems kind of funny because it's sort of like there's nothing really glamorous about it. It's totally a practical implementation, but that's the room. People want that.
Yeah,
those notifications were terrible.
Yeah,
I mean they're awful.
Yeah.
So this will help a lot.
They're just not doing anything. And it's neat the way they're doing it. They're doing two things: they're group notifications, and they're making it easier to make notifications go silent, which is something you can already do. You can go into any app's notification settings, and you can say just turn off sound, and you can turn off the banners and stuff, and the notification will come in. It'll just go straight to your notification history, right? But now what they're doing is not only are they grouping them, and you can turn that on and off by app as well, but you can, but if you swipe over in the notification like you do to clear it out, you'll get the option to do things like it'll right there on the screen just say, oh, make this a silent notification. So all your notifications from Facebook, and then what it'll just do is go turn off sound and the banners or pop-ups so that it just pops into your notification history instead. And both of those things are, I think, what most people need to kind of get their notifications under control.
Yeah.
And just stop this barrage and this huge list of things on iOS.
Yeah.
Well, Mick Taylor over on Twitter says, not mentioned but good, second face-to-face, face for Face ID.
Yep.
Yes. Jason, could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, there's just in the Face ID settings, there's a thing that the option says, I think it says set alternate appearance or something like that, which I think is intended to be for, well, if you change your look fairly dramatically, it's not like Face ID learns as you grow a beard or whatever, but if you change your look very dramatically, especially fairly often, it's going to trick that, and they want to let you put another face in. But it totally works for just a different person. Your alternate appearance could just be another human, and so it's just like having extra fingerprints in Touch ID, except there's only two. There's only your original and your alternate.
I think
second face for Face ID.
I think most people will probably use it for a spouse or a kid.
Spouse or a kid, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to watch it though, because you got to make sure that they can't make purchases.
right.
Because it's not a separate user account,
Oh,
It's
yeah.
you.
So
Well,
you can't lock that out, huh?
They allowed, the fingerprints. I always had, my wife had one, and I had one. I mean, you give it to people you trust.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's a cool feature. My wife has a 10, and I'm always because I can't I like before I could just use my fingerprint. It was easy. Now I got to remember her passcode every time or shove the phone up to her face. So it's nice to to be able to put my own face in.
So
assuming she lets me.
Max Made Easy over on Twitter says they enjoy the morning lock screen without tons of notifications, which they talked a lot about the whole idea of being too tied to your phone, and I mean it's Google just did that recently too. It kind of seems to be a new trend of like, hey, we need to understand how much we're living in our digital lives and be able to kind of push that away if we want.
Yeah. It's part of their digital health features. It's really cool. There's just a toggle that says, like, when you have your do not disturb mode in the settings, there's just a toggle for what do they call it? Bedtime mode, I think.
Yeah.
Which just means that your notifications stuff will still come into history, but they won't be on your screen until you pick up your phone and unlock it. So if you just pick up your phone or look at it on the table or whatever to check the time or something like that, it's not going to be full of notifications and stuff. Everything's going to be silent. You can exempt apps, like if you have some app that's an emergency or you want to make sure your calls come through, you can exempt those things.
Does that also work for the Apple Watch as well? Like if you're saying, hey, I haven't touched my phone yet, so I don't want to address it, but I already put it on my Apple Watch, are you going to see the notifications there too, or?
They'll be in your history, but your watch won't chime and vibrate. But I don't think it does that anyways when it's out on its charger. So if you're wearing your watch,
your
sometimes
phone's
in do not disturb mode, I think your watch just doesn't.
Yeah, it shuts
doesn't
off.
vibrate.
Yeah, because sometimes in the morning I'll put my watch on like first thing, before I even check my phone, as I'm getting ready, just getting dressed and stuff like that. So
yeah.
We actually put up a poll this morning. We put up a poll this morning. We usually do the poll the day before, but like I said, life got in the way, and I didn't get the poll up until this morning. So we don't have as many votes as usual, but we have a significant number. We have over 250 votes. That's pretty good. We asked what your favorite new iOS 12 feature was. Of course, we only gave you a choice of 4 when we picked what we thought were the major ones.
Not enough, Roman.
So, Twitter only allows you to have 4.
Yeah.
So, and that's why we want people to comment because, But anyways, the results were 17% voted for screen time. 37% voted for group notifications, 34% voted for Siri shortcuts, and 12% voted for ARKit 2, like Measure, Memoji, and things like that. So people are excited about
my votes for screen time. I didn't participate because I have Tweetbot that doesn't allow me to do polls. But screen time, I'm down with. I've wanted that for forever.
Is that because of yourself or for like your kids?
That's for my son. He's 6.
Oh, okay.
And he has my old iPad Mini, and we have to set timers and things so he knows when to stop using it. And a lot of it is the honor system, and he's getting to the point where he's trying to hide things and sneak things into his room and things like this. So it'll be it's cool that we're going to be able to just go on our phone, lock it out, lock down apps, lock down times, things like this that he won't be able to get to.
Yeah, and that you can do it by type. You can say, okay, you can only play games this much, but you can use this app as much as you want. This is an educational app or whatever, that kind of stuff. It seems that they've done a pretty good job with that. I haven't drilled into it or anything.
Do you think if you ran a poll just for kids, it would be the opposite? That's the thing they're least excited for. Yeah.
Yeah. So my wife is always on my kids about their screen time, and when they showed this feature, I was thinking, I'm not as strict about the screen time because I always figure it's gonna figure itself. The kids will figure it themselves out. I don't know, and I try to be the progressive dad.
Yeah.
This is the way it is now. So,
deal with it, kids.
But, so my wife is kind of like on this lonely island, and that I don't really say anything about their screen time. And I was like, should I tell my wife about these features?
Yeah. I think a significant issue is that it's still you still only have the one Apple ID per device. So you can set a child Apple ID account and put that on your iPad, and you can control all the screen time stuff, they said, from the parent account. But you can't still have a shared iPad with your kid's account and your account on it, where the kid's account has all the screen time stuff, like restrictions, and yours doesn't. So I think that's still an issue. Apple doesn't seem to be operating under that assumption that multiple people use one iPad and need different accounts.
And also, in my case, my son doesn't have his own iCloud account. He uses mine. So, how's that going to work? Is it by device or is it by account?
It's by account, and you can set a child's. You could give him his own account and make it a child's account and say that's for and set restrictions on purchasing and stuff like that.
And I assume family sharing or whatever that thing's called, that all has to be turned on.
Yeah, I think it's based on family sharing. So then you have to give your kid an iCloud account, and that's exactly it works that way. Yeah. So
I haven't dived into any of that stuff. So
yeah,
perhaps we'll still be using timers. We'll see.
Some of the comments on the poll, the user Shank the Tank was very disappointed about a lack of meaningful Siri upgrades, and essentially gave us an app to create macros without actually improving the core underlying intelligence.
Well, I kind of get their point. We'll see. Siri might be. There's a couple of things on Apple's website that indicates that they have made it smarter and more knowledgeable. We'll see once iOS 12 comes out. Because that kind of stuff isn't like Apple's not going to demonstrate, it knows this now. It knows this now. It just kind of comes. So we'll see.
Yeah, they just mentioned a few new areas of, sports stuff and everything that you could ask it. But they're not going to, it's too much of an admission of it having problems to go out there and
also
talk about all the stuff they fixed.
I was thinking about features. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, there's no way you can really demo that in a positive light. Like you can see Craig Federighi going, remember how you could say this and it wouldn't work? Now you can say this and it'll work. You just can't demo that. It's so hard to demo. And also I can see Apple seeing that, while that is something that is much wanted and needed, they're just going to let that go and say, people enjoy the improvements and we don't have to showcase it. It's been one of those, hidden, not necessarily hidden, but it's in the background kind of thing.
But Apple isn't scared to throw themselves under the bus, right? Usually it's like when a new thing comes out, they're just like, oh, that last one, that one sucked. This is the best ever,
Yeah, they aren't afraid to do that. But I guess the thing is with the digital assistants, it's such a competitive, and it's such a competitive groundswell market
Yeah.
now. And they even said at one point during the demonstration that Siri was like the number one installed digital assistant, but with
Yeah,
like,
whatever.
Right.
They just sell more devices. I mean,
Right.
That's all that really
it's on all the
is.
devices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so they were putting
And they
like
talk
this
about how
positive
many
spin
billions of
on it.
requests they get, but that doesn't mean like how many billions of requests does Google
Right.
Assistant get? Like I don't
And
know.
also, how many billions of requests are duplicate because she didn't understand you the first
Right.
time?
Yeah.
Right. I
So,
do think Siri Shortcuts is going to be big. Like that's
Yeah.
it already it's useful in the sense that like if there's just one thing that you do in an app that you just wish you could trigger with Siri, you could do that. But the Shortcuts app is like that workflow app that they bought last year.
Yeah.
And they basically just took that workflow app. They're tweaking it up and they're making it and letting you do a custom Siri phrase to do like multiple things at once. And it's not just launching apps, it's like doing a specific thing within that app. And yeah, I can see I can think of a dozen things that I do every single day that I would make a Siri shortcut if I could. So
I assume all this will work with HomePod and your watch and all that. Like it's not just the iPhone.
it's probably just the iPhone in the sense that like all these apps aren't running on your HomePod, right?
But if
So-
you like, let's say you set up like they use that tile example,
Right.
Like find my keys, like that. Like if you asked your HomePod, "Hey Siri, find my keys," like that'll work, I assume, right? It'll tap into the same system.
I have no idea. I mean,
Yeah.
it would need to communicate with your phone because it's not just talking to
Yeah.
a thing in
Right.
the cloud. It's literally
Right.
running apps on your phone.
Right.
Right.
So I don't know if that kind of thing would work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it doesn't, that's a pretty big miss for HomePod.
It wouldn't
that would
surprise
be-
me if
It wouldn't
didn't,
surprise me
just
either, yeah.
Because not just because of that, but because
But your HomePod needs your phone now for a lot of stuff. Like it's as long as it's on the same Wi-Fi network, like they speak to each other all the time. But if I'm in my office and my phone's in the kitchen
yeah.
and I say, "Hey Siri, where are my keys?" Like it should be able to
Right.
answer me on the HomePod speaker.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
not
think
saying
the
it
thing
doesn't. I
they'd
don't
be
know.
worried about is that there's you'd have to separate out the things that will work without a screen versus the things that need your screen.
Sure.
Like you could
Yeah.
some of your shortcut stuff could be apps that pop up stuff on your screen, and
Maybe
separating
they could
out
give
all the
like
ones that do and don't. This is open to developers to implement. So
maybe there would be like a checkbox on their end to enable HomePod access and not enable HomePod access. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I would not be surprised if it just wasn't there because there's too many cases where not having the screen suddenly, well, I got to go check
Right.
my phone anyways to use this thing. Yeah.
I mean, if that's the case, if it is an iPhone only thing, I just don't know if the adoption is going to be there. I mean, people. All right. Just speaking of myself, I use a home speaker for digital assistant. In way more than I use my phone. I mean, it's not even close.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see. What was I going to bring up?
Well, we do have a specific question from the chat on Twitter. There we have Merly126 asking, is there anything new in the accessibility for iOS 12? Did they talk about?
I mean, they didn't really talk about it. There was a cool feature that was making the rounds yesterday that your AirPods are going to be able to be used as like a speaker. So you can put your phone next to the television and flip it into whatever mode, and it'll pick up from the microphone and send the sound it hears to your AirPods.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat. If
They
you're
have that.
if you're like
they have
hearing
that
impaired.
now for regular wired headphones.
Yes.
And they're just enabling that for AirPods apparently.
For
I forget what
AirPods,
it's
so
called.
that's-
It's alliterative.
It's called something.
listen something.
Interesting, huh?
But yeah, and it's to help for people who you can't hear somebody in a crowded space or something like that. You put your phone next to your
I mean, it's kind of
spouse
like
in a
a
restaurant. or
like
something.
an AirPod functioning as like a hearing aid.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's
That's sort
kinda
of a
cool.
hearing aid. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of.
Oh, I didn't hear about that feature.
Well, maybe you know
yeah,
this
I don't
feature.
know what else.
Yeah. So, but I have some hearing issues, so I could. That actually sounds like something I would be very
Kind of
useful
cool.
for me.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
neat.
So, also in response to the poll, there was one person was I want to say his name is at Buehlig, Beuhlig. Actually, didn't respond to any of our answer offerings. He said that they liked the idea that password managers like 1Password and LastPass can be used across the across iOS, and meaning that like there will be now an implementation iOS 12 where like when you have to enter a password, third-party password managers will now be able to fill in that password, whereas now you have to go out to the app, copy it, and paste it.
Or use iCloud Keychain.
It works really well on my Android phone right now, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
so true.
That API, that's something Android's had, and
it'll also be able to, it'll fill in it'll autofill two-factor authentication codes that get sent to you.
Right.
Oh,
which is cool too.
Yeah, SMS. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you don't have to copy those and flip over.
Yeah.
There's some other good stuff with just iCloud Keychain will autofill passwords and stuff too, but it'll suggest, like, you can have it create passwords, like create a strong password for me, which is something password managers do a lot.
And I think it'll alert you if like if you've used one like a bunch of times, it'll tell you like you've used this too many times. I think I read that as well.
And then it'll also help you find passwords, which I don't know exactly how this works, but from what I've read, it's when you say, oh, what's my password for this, then what it does is you have to use Face ID or Touch ID, and then it pops you into Keychain into where that password is so that you can see exactly what it was. It just directly takes you to that. So
that's neat. That's almost like a password manager built into your phone.
Yeah, it's making iCloud's Keychain stuff much more like a real password manager, and they've got an API for third-party password managers, all the ones that you love, to be able to tie in and do all the things that Apple's own stuff can do. So all those things combined are really good. I really like that they're doing.
Brian Schramm replied on our Twitter poll that his favorite feature is the third-party navigation app support for CarPlay is what he was waiting for. And that probably got
me too.
just about as big a response as group notifications during the event. When they showed on screen CarPlay, and then the next slide was Waze, and I believe it was Google Maps. And people were like, what?
Was it Google Maps? I thought it was
Pretty sure.
I thought it was like a Chinese map.
Or maybe it was a Chinese, right. So,
but Waze was one of them.
Waze was definitely one of them. And people were like, what? And it was like the whole room almost exploded about that.
Now we're going to use CarPlay.
That's huge. Yeah.
So then that's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
Yeah.
I use CarPlay all the time. And fortunately, where I live, Apple Maps is really pretty good for car navigation stuff. It's still not great for like Google Maps is still way better about like finding businesses and stuff like that. But the road stuff it's okay, but I still love Waze way better. I can't wait for Waze they'll have to update the apps for this to happen, but I can't wait.
I mean, based on that slide, it seems that they, unless Apple just drew an icon on there, it seems like they've been working with Google or ways to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm sure they're working on it. It's just there's no new app update rolled out already. And Google has publicly said, we would love if they do it, we would love to be there. So I'm sure they're jumping on it as fast as they can.
Over on YouTube, Talon Murphy Jr. says they've noticed that Siri is smarter in beta. It'll show you your passwords if you ask for it, and it'll even turn the flashlight on. That they've been able to do.
I think flashlight is something you could do before anyway, right?
Oh, okay.
It's so funny because I think you're right, but there are some other things that Siri can't do.
Yeah.
That that you would think it could do. Like last week, I wanted Siri to send a text to the last person who called me because I knew it was their mobile phone, and Siri just could not understand what I was trying to do. It was just I kept saying like, Siri, start a text or send it. So many times in different ways I would say, send a text to the last number that called me, and Siri just could not figure out what the heck I was trying to do.
Yeah, you need a name.
So,
I can't find last number that called you in your message.
It was so many different mistakes, and I was just like, and eventually I just had to pull over, and I was like, all right, and so, but anyways, yeah. So a lot of iOS features that are coming out. Everything is coming out in the fall. Typically, it comes out, I think, the end of October.
iOS is like right smack dab in the middle of September.
Yeah,
the
September
or the 14th or something.
It's generally, they have their event in early September. It's always I think it's something like it's always the second Tuesday in September or something. But that's where they announce the new iPhones and Apple Watches and stuff.
Right.
And those usually ship late September, and the iOS drop is like a week before that.
They have the event, the pre-orders, iOS, and then the shipping.
Right.
That's
and the new phones have the new iOS. And,
they usually come with the new iOS on it, and then there's always some little update or something.
Yeah.
As soon as you fire it up.
Yeah, like a 0.1 or something.
Yeah.
Fix all the bugs that they didn't get.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they were manufacturing them over the previous months.
Yeah. So Mac OS is getting some new features.
Yeah,
but I think
I dig it. Yeah, I dig the name, by the way. Mojave is the best one yet.
Mojave is the best one. Yeah. So there was a leak like over the weekend before that Stephen Troughton-Smith, I believe is that. Did I get his name correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either Troughton or Troughton. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but yeah.
He found on Apple's servers, I think. He got some information, and so I think he found the name Mojave and the dark mode and other things like that. And I
think he was running like Xcode or something. Like he had, it wasn't just a name. Like he actually like put screenshots of the feature.
Yeah, Xcode now has a dark mode.
There was a video or something that he.
Yeah. Right. That's
a short video, and it showed a dark mode version of Xcode and some other stuff like the news app was in the icon dock and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think dark mode's obviously very cool, and I'm wondering, does this mean we're getting it on iOS next year? I hope.
Yeah. Well,
there's some people in the chat saying they wish it came to iOS.
On my phone, if dark mode's available for an app, I use it, and I not only because I like dark mode better, but also on the phone, when you're using black, you're saving a little bit of battery life.
Yeah, on OLEDs.
It's
sure. I had that thought. Maybe it's going to be a iPhone 10 or 11 feature, and they're not showing it now, but they'll show it in September because it's OLED. It's a better for OLED than LCD.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But probably not. Probably next year.
It's funny.
I would assume
like 12.3 or something.
Yeah, it's like to some people I've talked to, like they don't get dark mode. It's like what? It's kind of a geeky thing, for people who sit in front of their computers a lot. I would love to have dark mode on my Mac.
And you always want what you don't have.
Right.
If we had dark mode, we'd want white mode.
So, during a briefing, I had a briefing with Apple after the event, and I asked them about. They were showing the dark mode, and I asked them does that mean Final Cut and GarageBand and all those are they going to get a light mode? And they just laughed at me.
I know. Those guys, video editors don't want a light mode.
But I just, so. Well,
you can change, actually, in Adobe Premiere, you can change
can you go back?
The color. Yeah.
You can go back.
It's like a slider,
Yeah.
But it's different.
So do you use dark mode in your what do you think of dark mode as a video editor?
Oh yeah, I would use it, and even for like back in the day I was a heavy aperture user. Before I switched to Lightroom, and I killed it. But I would definitely use a dark mode. It's easier on the eyes for sure, and it can make things pop visually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there are some Finder enhancements. What is it called now? Is it grouped files?
Oh, for the desktop?
Yeah, the desktop.
Stacks?
Stacks, that's what it is.
Stacked file.
Desktop stacks, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
So
that's auto grouping by type, and then you can just click the stack and expand it.
Right.
My desktop, I can't stand to have extra stuff on my desktop, so it doesn't really impact me a lot, but I've seen some desktops out there where it's like, holy, it's just covered in icons, and those people need stacks.
No.
Yes.
I agree with Jason. I mean, honestly, the looking at the stacks will annoy me just as much as looking at anything else. Like I have nothing on my desktop.
Yeah. I don't use my desktop that way. The desktop is a temporary place, and I always clean it up. So,
so it's not a folder, right? It's essentially trying to do a smart grouping of all the icons.
Yeah, exactly what it is. Yeah,
it's just like a pile of icons.
Right.
Yeah, it just takes your file types and puts them all into a stack.
Yeah.
By that file type, and then when you click on it, it just blows them back out, so you can grab.
It's like it's like the dock. When you have the folders in the dock.
Yeah.
They're not like folder. They're kind of folders, but they're not folders. And you click them and they open. And
right.
You go do them. And then
very similar to that.
If you want to open it in a Finder, then it'll probably be a right click or something.
Yeah. I'm also looking forward to the continuity camera, because I find that I have to, especially because I have kids, and I always have to fill out a form, and they bring the form home, but then they want me to, like, whoever's giving the form
email the PDF.
wants me to submit it digitally. It's like, that'll save me.
Well, then why'd you send me a paper form?
Yeah, exactly. Why did you?
Exactly.
You have my email. Why did you guys send me a paper form? So,
yeah. Maybe you should explain exactly what that is.
So yeah, continuity camera essentially allows you to use your iPhone as like kind of like I don't want to say you can use it as sort of like a scanner. There's essentially I need to get my brain.
It's like your iPhone can be your webcam if you want.
Right, exactly. It's like your iPhone becomes an external camera for your Mac.
Yeah,
so,
it's like what it
That's
was.
what I was trying to say.
It's like camera remote on the watch, except that now it's on your Mac. Like what you see over here is going onto your Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can do things
take
like
a picture with your phone and it's on your Mac.
Right.
Not just in the Photos app, but like whatever app you're using.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
It calls for a camera.
That was pretty cool.
It'll be good for filing expense reports.
Oh,
right.
Goodness. Oh.
So, yeah. So it's that kind of thing. So like if you need to get, you do an expense report, you got to get a receipt in there. You can take a picture. And So and it gets on your Mac. So that's pretty cool. There's a redesigned app store. But the big thing that they talked about for the Mac, they gave a sneak peek of what won't be available until next year. Which was the rumored Marzipan project.
I love Marzipan. It's so good.
So for people unfamiliar, there's been, as Apple was saying, there's been speculation for a while that Apple will merge iOS and macOS, and they actually addressed that. Craig Federighi addressed that specifically during the keynote, and had a big
that giant no.
Right, giant no.
History of Apple slide.
Right, no with a period, which I thought should be a no with an ellipsis. Should be no ...
No, but.
So yeah. So they emphasized that the two aren't going to merge, but Apple is working on tools that will allow developers to bring their Mac OS apps or iOS apps over to the Mac.
Yeah.
So
right now, there's two things. There's on Macs, there's the set of tools you use for all of your interaction with your app is called AppKit. Right. And it's on iOS, it's called UIKit. And what they're just doing is they're taking the UIKit, that stuff that makes sense. They're not going to do all your accelerometer and stuff, but the stuff that makes sense, they're putting that on the Mac and altering it, upgrading it for things like physical keyboards and touchpads and mice, pointers, things like that, and resizable windows and that kind of stuff. But it's going to be UIKit. So if you're used to making iOS apps, you could take your any Mac. I think any app that basically has an iPad view would probably work pretty good on a Mac.
Yeah.
With they say minimal adjustments. I guess it depends on how well your interface deals with like resizing and everything. But and that's what they're doing for. They're adding the news app, the home app, and stocks and stuff. Those are basically, they're taking their iOS apps with UIKit and making a Mac version and putting them on the Mac. So
yeah, during the keynote, I kept thinking, why did they keep talking about the stocks app? That's like,
Yeah, I know.
nobody is interested in the stocks app, and this is
I
why.
like the stocks app,
So,
Roman.
I mean, it's a good, it's a
Some
good
of us
app,
use it.
but is it the type? I was like, okay, the stocks app, people have a use for it, but is it the type of app that you highlight at a developers conference? Like, why did he keep talking about it? Because they would talked about it at the iOS section.
Yeah.
And then they talked about how it's coming to Mac OS too. And I was like,
iPad and Mac, and
but this is why, because it's a demonstration of how these new
it was
tools
one of those
work.
hiding in plain sight
Right.
features.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So it was probably like, oh, okay. But I was like, what?
And I think, I mean, like, I'm not excited about the stocks app either, but I am genuinely excited about the news app on Mac OS because I think Apple does a really good job of curated and somewhat customizable news in the news app. But I'm often on my computer when I want to read the news. I don't want to have to pull up my phone for that.
Yeah.
And the Home app also means that Siri on your Mac will now work with HomeKit. All your HomeKit stuff will work with Siri on the Mac, which is another sort of closing those holes of like, how come Siri does different stuff on different devices? You know, that addresses that to a large degree.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this was a preview. You know, it probably won't get into. I'm sure there'll be more rumblings about it later in the year, and then they'll, you know, talk a lot more in detail at next year's WWDC about this.
So yeah, the first developer preview is out now.
Yeah.
If you go to beta.apple.com, you can enroll your device to the public beta, which typically comes in 2 or 3 weeks. You know, I would think in less than a month, the first public beta will roll out for these iOS and Mac OS and stuff.
Yeah.
Usually watch and TV are not part of it. They haven't said specifically that it won't be, but they haven't been in the past. It's just Mac and iOS.
Yeah.
Right.
So watch. Go ahead.
Yeah,
what was that?
I think they do public beta on tvOS as well.
Did they?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I know definitely not watch. I know that for sure, but maybe I'm wrong about tvOS.
Yeah, tvOS 12 isn't adding a lot. Dolby Atmos.
Yeah. Right.
And they're doing a thing that most people aren't going to get to experience called zero sign-on, which is actually very cool. Right now they have single sign-in, which is like if you have, let's say, Comcast and for TV, and because you subscribe to all these TV channels, that gives you access to those apps, like the FX Now app that requires you to sign in. You can put your sign-in information, and then the supporting app will just sign you in once you put in your sign-in information. What they're doing now is they're saying, like, well, if you have Comcast as your TV provider and it provides you all these apps, as long as your Apple TV is connected to the internet through your Comcast account, then you just don't do anything. It just signs you in. You don't even have to put in your Comcast sign-in stuff. They just work.
That's nice.
But it's only starting with like Charter Spectrum, and then they promise more in the fall and stuff, you know, things like that. So I don't know how quickly those things will roll out, but it would be nice for all of those TV station apps, NBC app, and all these other things, not to ever even ask me to sign in. Don't worry about. I don't want to like sign in, but sign in more quickly. I just want it to work. If I can watch this on my cable box, I want to be able to watch it on my Apple TV.
Yeah. So, yeah, there wasn't. There was also new aerials for which I kept.
Yeah, they look cool.
Yeah, they do. And the IDing of them is nice because I'm always like, where is that? I like Google it. I try to figure out, like, I pick a spot and I like, what is the building with the cross on the top? And so it'll be cool just to ask and see what it is.
Yeah, you just tap the pad and it pulls up the location of where is this aerial. And then they took a bunch of aerials. Aerials are what they call those cool screensavers. They took some from the International Space Station of like Earth, and those will be really cool looking.
Oh, that's cool.
Looks nice.
There were also some new Watch OS features that were announced.
Many of those seem very cool, I gotta admit.
Like what?
All right, so the most fun one is the walkie-talkie thing.
Yes.
Like there's a walkie-talkie app where
circa Nextel 2006.
yeah, exactly. Nextel, but the
I was
Apple
always jealous
Watch
of that.
is the exact right place for that.
I agree.
It makes one-to-one push-to-talk conversations with a single individual, where you
get a little
big yellow you get a big yellow button and you press it and you say what you're going to say.
Yeah, it's smarter than that digital touch stuff that no one ever used.
Exactly. It's smarter than that. It's easier. It's dead simple, and a lot of times, like, that's exactly, you don't want to have to phone call somebody or text and buzz their phone and stuff like that just to say, like, where are you?
Right. I'm in aisle 3. Like
exactly
that kind of thing. Right.
It's going to be perfect for that kind of stuff. Yeah. And to Apple's credit, like. Not to the credit, but like, it's going to be good for Apple because it's only for watches. Like, all your friends need Apple Watches now.
Well, actually, some people in the chat were wondering, do you guys think it will extend out to the iPhone or even the Mac? Because they want to see it there. So.
No, I don't. I don't think that kind of push to talk one-off thing just makes a lot of sense on those devices. The whole point of that kind of quick talk thing is not pulling out your phone or your Mac. So.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but I think that's pretty cool. They're doing some cool stuff with better health things, better certain types of activities, like exercise activities, like running and stuff like that. It'll prompt you if you forget to start a workout.
Yeah, or stop one, which is nice.
Or stop one. Yeah. So if you just go out and start running, your phone will buzz and go, "Oh, are you running? Start a workout." And you just tap it. And then it'll also give you credit for all the running you've already done. And then if you forget to stop it, which I do all the time, after you stop running, it'll be like, hey, just stop working out, and you can just hit the button and get it. So those things like that. There's yoga.
The Siri face allowing third-party cards is awesome because I wanted that from the start. I mean, that's my favorite watch face, and now they're adding sports and stuff, and now they're going to also let all the developers kind of do little things on there too, so it'll be way more useful.
Yeah,
and kind of have like a steady stream of info.
I'm worried about the Siri watch face because I can't use it because it's obsessed with telling me when sunset is. That's tied to the weather app, so you can't turn that card off without turning off the weather. And the top card is always like sunset at 8:24. I'm like, it's 10 in the morning. I don't care. I won't care tonight. I never care when the sunset is specifically, but I don't want to turn off the weather.
It would be nice if you could swipe them away, and so it would learn, like, I don't want to see this anymore.
Exactly. It's supposed to be smarter about learning the ones you want to see, but if it constantly has that as my top card, then I don't want to use the Siri app, and I never do. And turning that off requires turning off weather, which is something I always want on my watch. So there's those. What was the one? Oh, and the other thing that I don't think this is live in the beta yet or anything. In fact, they pulled the beta down because it was bricking watches. Ooh. But there's a thing where if you just raise your watch like this, for the people watching the video, if you just raise your watch like this, you can start saying Siri things without having to say, "Hey Siri" first.
Oh, that's nice.
Which also seems like to make a lot of sense as long as they're good about not triggering it just by your hands moving around.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, how are they going to know when you're like, all right, so you raise your thing to look at something, and then someone next to you says something. Is Siri going to pop up on your watch?
Right. Or wonder if you're just looking at it to see the time, and you happen to say, "Oh, I'm running late,"
or if you're on the phone with someone, like,
is Siri going to think you're running?
Right. Yeah. You're
I'm interested to see how they handle all that.
Yeah. So it may be very specific about, like, maybe you have to hold it up a certain way or something. I don't know. But if they get that right, that'll be great because I can't.
Maybe it listens in the background but then it's listening all the time.
It's always
that's my other for Hey Siri.
Yeah.
Now it's saying that it's always listening. So
I don't think it is. They're saying specifically you've got to it's raised to listen, which they used to have on phones and got rid of.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really tricky to make that work. Only when you really want to talk to Siri.
So I guess, like, if you raise you have to raise your wrist like high.
Yeah, up to your mouth, maybe.
Up to your mouth.
Yeah, in that motion. How do they differentiate that from looking at
looking at your time? Yeah. Right, that's my question. Yeah.
They need a camera on it so they can tell how close they are.
sometimes you have to be real enthusiastic.
There is a proximity
just
sensor
to see the time.
So maybe it's part of the proximity sensor. I don't know.
Did they say what watches you'll need for this? Like
everything but the first. The Series 0 is
not.
They're done.
Right.
So your $10,000 solid gold Apple Watch is now obsolete.
Oh, that's it.
Stuck on WatchOS 4. Yeah.
Oh, dang it.
So
I don't know if there are certain features that are only for certain watches. It doesn't seem to be. They haven't said anything like that.
Well, I think all of those have. No, that's not true. Some don't have GPS. So I guess some of them wouldn't. Some of the running stuff wouldn't without GPS.
I thought that was just Series 0 though. Doesn't
connected.
Series 1 even have GPS?
Oh, maybe it does. Oh yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Okay.
But I think that the issue is probably RAM or something. I think they doubled the RAM after Series 0 or something. Yeah, there's I'm sure a technical reason why.
Yeah.
Because they're really doing a good job of supporting older stuff for most of this. Like iOS 12 works on everything iOS 11 did, and they made a really big deal about improving performance, particularly on old devices.
Yeah.
That's nice.
That was one of the first things they talked about.
It was the very first thing they talked about, with big numbers about like twice as fast at doing 70%,
this. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
And that they're implementing, there's like a new way that the processor is going to be working on your
throttled
events.
up and down.
Right. The way it throttles up and down and stuff. So
speaking of which, I need to get my new iPhone 6s battery before I install this beta.
Oh, get that while it's this year, while you get it.
Yeah, I gotta get that done.
But macOS Mojave is cutting off some old Macs that High Sierra works. Yeah. Basically anything pre-2012, except for Mac Pros that have metal-capable GPUs. Right. They're basically requiring metal-capable GPUs is what it looks like the real division is.
But it's like 3 years of Macs versus High Sierra versus Mojave. It was quite a few.
Yeah. They're still going back 7 years.
Oh yeah.
So that's, it's not. And if you can't upgrade to macOS Mojave, with the exception of things like the News app and stuff, the vast majority of Mac apps are still going to work on High Sierra.
Well, you got the 32-bit even works for a whole nother year now. So everything will run fine.
It's going to be the last OS that supports 32-bit Mac apps, which they've already done on iOS for what it's worth.
Yeah,
they've already killed 32-bit iOS apps. So I don't think that's as big a deal as the bigger issue with cutting off those old Macs is that Mojave is going to be required for all the apps that use UIKit.
Right.
And so over time, there is going to be this, probably a groundswell of new Mac apps that just won't work on really old Macs. So,
we're probably looking at a year and a half to 2 years at least until the first what is it called, Marzipan apps even show up. Yeah. So,
do you think that long?
Sure. They said it's a feature next year, which means developers will get it at WWDC next year. So it probably won't be until macOS.
Oh, I thought it was in Xcode now. I saw some tweets from developers who started to mess with stuff now.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's coming in Mojave. I think they're just starting with Apple's own apps is the thing. So you need the new Xcode. You'll need Mojave.
So you think they'll be showing up in Mojave at some point?
Yeah. Okay. I think so. But either way,
So why was it a sneak peek and not an actual feature then?
I don't know.
Marketing.
Maybe it's because they're not done. Like there's
more UI
tools that they need to do before you can do it all.
Okay. Jason, you mentioned metal. One of the things that happened at WWDC is that Apple is deprecating OpenCL, which is Apple's
OpenCL and OpenGL.
Yeah, which is Apple's graphics implementation to make it as broad a definition as possible. So, which I saw a couple of people thought that was sort of a big deal, but I don't know if it really is. I mean, there was a similar transition on Microsoft's side when they switched from, I just blanked on it. Is it DirectX to? I don't remember. You're the
Yes.
PC gamer.
Yeah, there wasn't really. I mean, at no point has Windows just said, "No, I mean, we're not doing OpenGL anymore."
Yeah.
You know,
So,
I mean,
deprecating doesn't mean it's gone. It means it's in there. It works. It's just not going to get any updates unless there's a super critical security update.
Right.
Which is honestly, realistically, it's been deprecated for a while.
Exactly.
Apple has not done any meaningful development on OpenGL on the Mac for some time.
Yeah.
The drivers have huge problems and stuff. I mean, it kind of is good to push people to Metal. The issue is that there's some like small indie developers and stuff who want to make cross-platform apps.
Yeah.
And they choose OpenGL because it'll run on a Mac and it'll run on Windows.
Yeah.
But they still have to do all this separate coding anyways. That's just the graphics API part of it.
Yeah.
And then with Unity and Unreal and all these other third-party engines that people use now, that small developers use now, and those are already use different APIs on different platforms and stuff. I don't think it's going to be long term. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal, especially since your OpenGL app will still work on Mojave like it does on High Sierra. It's,
Yeah, it's like with a lot of things Apple does when they're phasing out old technology. They don't just cut it off. It's going to take a while, and it'll be a couple generations before it's absolutely cut off. So,
I mean, and it could have an impact on us video types, but I haven't worked on a Mac laptop in a while, so I don't know, or even a desktop. So I don't know how if Metal is integrated into things like Premiere Pro or not. But that's something I guess we'd have to test. How is that versus?
Right.
Yeah, I think all those guys have already moved over anyways for performance reasons.
Right.
Big developers like that are going to be able to make the switch if they haven't already.
Yeah.
It's really just going to impact smaller guys who need one graphics API that'll work on the Mac and on Windows.
So just kind of to wrap this up, on a down note, I guess, I don't know. So there were no hardware announcements, which I think a lot of people were kind of disappointed because, for instance, I think a lot of people wanted to see MacBook Pro updates because Apple has a new Intel has new processors out, and we were kind of waiting for those processors to get implemented, and Apple hasn't done anything. I thought maybe they would do every once in a while, once Apple has an event and they unveil products, sometimes the next day or the next couple days after, they'll then do another release that wasn't showcased during the event.
A stealth release.
Right. And I thought maybe they would do that with laptops, and they haven't.
I think they'll come sooner than later. I don't think we'll be waiting till September or October for new Macs. But I think Apple was very conscious that last year's WWDC was a little bit too mishmashy and muddled with the hardware and the software and the HomePod, and there was a lot going on. And I think they just said, you know what? This is just software, just for developers. We'll deal with the hardware later.
Yeah. Yeah, and the software needed that kind of attention. So,
I think so, too.
Yeah.
So, especially since their software stores seem to be pretty good this year.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
I don't think like this article Michael wrote this morning, I don't think there was a lot of stuff there that we saw and said, oh, nobody's doing that. That's never been done before. But they checked a lot of boxes saying like, oh, we want that. We want that. That's good.
Absolutely.
That's going to help a lot,
Well, that Apple Watch walkie-talkie feature, I can't think of another system that integrates that. That's cool. That made me jealous.
Walkie-talkie. Yeah, walkie-talkie got a kind of a big reception too. So.
Yeah, it's cool. I still say I wish Apple would open Apple Watch up to Android. I think it would be a tremendous hit if Android users could buy Apple Watches. I really do.
Same thing with AirPods too.
Well, you can. They work with it. They're not as seamless.
Yeah.
But they work.
Yeah, they
Apple
work
Watch
like any
is a
Bluetooth headset.
Apple Watch is basically just a watch. When you hook it up to an Android phone, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be, even if it was just minimal interactivity with the watch, I just think it would be. I think it would be a good feature, and there's things like this walkie-talkie thing. I think Android users would respond to that.
Oh yeah. Was there a part of you, Roman, when wheeled out that exercise bike that you maybe thought that was a new hardware announcement.
Yeah, I was like, what? Apple's doing exercise equipment now? So that was pretty funny. And then I noticed, I was watching the keynote again this morning, or I was going through parts of it to pick up stuff that I thought I couldn't remember correctly. And I noticed that, I hope this doesn't sound sexist, but like the women were wearing similar styled jackets. Or like 3 or 4 of the women were, so I was kind of like, you know, I know nothing about fashion, obviously. So, but you know,
you're looking stylish, man. What are you saying?
So, and then I noticed like Tim Cook's, he was wearing like a sweater, but you can kind of see his bicep, and I was like, Tim Cook's kind of pumping iron there.
So maybe
like
alluding
workout
to
equipment.
Yeah, maybe alluding to Apple getting into workout equipment.
So
I think you're watching a little too close.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but was there anything that you were kind of hoping to see at WWDC at the keynote that didn't happen? And is there anything like that you wish you would have seen at the keynote from you guys, other than hardware, HomePod stuff? Want to see more HomePod stuff?
I wanted to see two things. One, an update to Apple Music. I was surprised that we didn't get in. They didn't mention that at all. Because for one, the interface could use help, and for two, you know, Spotify is really making a major push here with their free tier and everything. And I thought maybe Apple would kind of, you know, just do something with Apple Music, maybe a free tier, or maybe just offer some extra things to people who aren't paying. But there was nothing. So maybe that's coming later. And also the video service. I thought we'd see something, maybe a trailer, maybe you know, something that says coming soon, Apple Video, blah blah. You know, all those TV shows. So those are the two things I wanted to see that I didn't.
Yeah, of the keynote, out of the whole keynote, the Apple TV section did feel kind of tacked on to me.
Yeah, it was pretty weak.
Yeah, and
it felt like we have to say something about tvOS.
Right, because it's one of our OSs.
It's a big deal for the 17 people who have receivers that can take advantage of it.
Right.
But that's not a feature that 90% of people are going to care about.
Yeah.
And the rest of the stuff was, you know, the zero sign-on. I'm still waiting for single sign-on to come to my provider. So.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's the bigger overhauls for their sort of video service and maybe Apple Music and stuff. I think maybe I think we can probably expect that as a separate event. Maybe that's next spring's event. Maybe that's, you know, something. But yeah, this seems like that's still a ways off. There's no way that they launch these million TV shows that they're working on without an event.
I agree with that. I thought maybe they'd show a trailer or something, just to kind of whet our appetite a little bit more. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's definitely worthy of a full scale event. There's a lot there that they have to talk about. So maybe September when all the new TV shows start. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't expect they would do stuff other than the software things, but it would have been nice to see them. I'm only half satisfied with the Siri stuff. Like you said, they're not going to come out there and talk about all the fixes that can really only be addressed as these are fixes, because they don't want to admit there's a problem. But there are a lot of things that need to work better. On the other hand, I think Siri Shortcuts is brilliant. That's something other assistants aren't doing. You know, this and Workflow is a really cool app. So for them to take Workflow and really make it all work with Siri like that, like I think that's going to be awesome. But yeah, I want to see new MacBooks. I just don't think they're going to be ready yet. I want to see them get rid of the terrible keyboard. I hate the butterfly keyboard. I want to see them stop being. I mean, I'm glad they're into USB-C, but I think on a big MacBook Pro, people have USB-A stuff, mics and stuff that aren't getting upgraded to USB-C, and we need to be saved from dongle hell a little bit with a USB-A port or two, you know, SD card slots, stuff like that. So I want all that stuff. I didn't realistically think it was coming. I don't realistically think it's coming this year. I think MacBook Pro updates are just going to be 8th gen Intel processors and nothing else.
Right.
So
I don't know. I think they might address the keyboard. We'll see. I mean, I think it's enough of a groundswell that they're going to have to in some way.
I think they will quietly fix the problems that are causing class action lawsuits, but it's still going to be the butterfly keyboard. They're just going to make it more reliable, and they're not. It's going to be quiet. But to make it a keyboard that has travel and stuff like the old keyboard and everything, a good keyboard again, that requires an entirely new shell design. Like you can't just stick a fatter keyboard in the shell they have, and I don't think that's coming this year. So. Well, I don't think there's much that's missing. I would have loved to see, like you would have loved to see a little teaser of the video stuff. I would have loved to see a little teaser of the Mac Pro, just a silhouette or something of the case.
I think we're too far away. I mean, I think probably. They kind of drew water on that when they said it's not coming until 2019. The teaser now, I mean, now we're 8, 10, 12 months away.
Yeah, I think it's.
But I agree, it would have been cool.
Next WWDC's big.
Absolutely.
Mythical creature, the Mac Pro.
Right. You can port your iOS apps over to Mac using the new Mac Pro. That's how it will work. So, actually, Jason, I'm kind of glad you brought up Siri shortcuts again, because the one thing I would have liked to have seen is a more consumer-friendly tool to create a Siri shortcut.
Yeah.
Because while Automator is a cool tool, I think a lot of people, general users, even just see the icon and go, "Whoa, what is that?"
You mean Workflow? The Workflow app?
Well, you can create custom Siri shortcuts using Automator, and the Automator app. That's what I'm assuming, that you would use the Automator app to create them.
It's a new app called Shortcuts.
Did they show?
That isn't in the beta yet.
Mac doing that, yeah.
And
it's drag and drop. Yeah.
It's drag and drop, and it's based on the current app called Workflow that Apple purchased.
Oh, okay. I totally missed that.
Which is really pretty user friendly, but it still needs. There's also all the Siri suggestions where apps can integrate with Siri to say, "You do this. How about you make a Siri command for it?" And that's, I think, going to be the critical thing for app developers to do if they want the normies, as we would say, to be able to use this feature. It's really going to require apps being good about going, "You do this a lot. You want a Siri command for it? Press this button."
Okay.
Yeah, I could definitely see people use, like, if it pops up saying, "Oh, sure, I'll do that," and then it takes you to the interface. You type in what you want to say, or you say what you want to say, and that's it.
Yeah.
Opening the shortcuts app, I think people are going to just delete it or move it to a folder they never heard, because they're not going to know what it is or even care. Most people.
Yeah, I think a lot of people won't, unless Apple prompts them with that. Yeah. They always do their getting started with iOS 12 and their little walkthroughs and stuff. And
I still think that I don't think people even use Siri more than Siri set an alarm on my phone. I just don't think people are using it. And a whole new app.
What did they say? 30 billion requests.
Right. So, all right, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. I think maybe I was trying to get because connectivity during the keynote was impossible, and maybe I was fiddling with that. That's I totally missed that somehow. So to go back and watch that section. So, but I think that just about does it for this week's episode of the Macworld Podcast, episode 608.
Correct.
608 of these. I haven't done 608 of these, but Macworld has. So, I'd like to thank Mike and Jason. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your hard work on the coverage. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
So you guys did some really great work while I was sitting in an auditorium.
Tons of stuff on the site.
Stuff coming too.
So
we got it was easier to write from my living room than sitting next to someone in a little tiny seat while I'm watching.
Well, like I said, we spent the first 20 minutes or so trying to get connectivity. The Wi-Fi wasn't working, and then I tried to tether, and that wasn't working. And then there was this weird thing where the only thing I could get connectivity to on my phone was Slack. I couldn't get any websites. I kept trying to tweet, and it wouldn't let me tweet. It was just
I'm surprised they blocked Apple it all. Hasn't wired their auditorium with hard connections, at least for the press section.
Yeah.
Good point.
I've been to a million press events
for
Microsoft and everybody else, and
Google.
The press section usually has Google does this. Google does this at the Shoreline Amphitheater outdoors.
Yes. Yep.
They've got a couple Ethernet jacks in each.
They even had a USB. this year they had USB-C adapters with the Ethernet dongle. It was awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can just plug Ethernet into your computer, and then you don't have to worry about the wireless not working. So
Yeah. I mean, they had power strips throughout the
exactly,
press
if you're gonna do
section,
power strips,
but there wasn't like
Ethernet too. Just
It worked last year, and I don't know what. So, but anyways, yeah. So that WWDC is continuing through the end of this week. You have to be a developer to attend, but we'll have more coverage for the rest of this week. Check our website for articles. A bunch of articles we got about iOS, macOS, tvOS, watchOS, and any other thing that Apple's talked about. Join us next week. Next week, we're actually going to be on Thursday.
Oh.
We have a schedule change because the video guys are a little busy next week. So
we are?
Yeah, I think, Dan, who's not here, asked if we
He's
could be on Thursday instead. So we're going to be on Thursday next week. Check our website for the exact time. I believe it'll be Thursday at 10 instead of Wednesday at 10. But we'll post that on the website when we'll actually be on. So next week we're a day later.
Is it because the E3 is messing everything up?
I think it's because of E3, and then there's some other corporate thing that Dan has to work on.
Yeah, it's actually a corporate thing. So.
Yeah, so it's a company thing.
June is just full of conferences and stuff.
Right.
It's a crowded month.
Yeah. So, but join us next week on Thursday. Again, we'll post a time on the website. Check macworld.com for any other information about WWDC, the podcast. And let us know what you guys are thinking on Twitter and YouTube. So, again, see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
I ran out of gas at the end.